Welcome to Sprinkle with Hope podcast with your host, Jason. We have an amazing guest with us today, E.A. Csolkovits. E.A. Csolkovits was born in 1956 in Chicago, Illinois. His humble beginnings were that of a son of a milkman. So we'll probably talk about that, I'm sure. But at age 16, he started his business career at a commission sales job selling janitorial services to business owners. At the age of 19, E.A. Csolkovits met Sam Robbins, a millionaire businessman from Detroit, Michigan. Sam took E.A. under his wing and began to mentor him. E.A. Csolkovits began working for Sam at the House of Holland Jewelers in the diamond business. In 1980, Sam established a private grant meant to be a part of his legacy due to his lifelong fight with diabetes. E.A., you've been through some crazy stuff. You've had a really long history and an awesome background. And so if there's anything else that I kind of left out, you'd like to, talk about yourself for just a second, and then we'll get going with some questions here.
I appreciate that. And as I listened to the lengthy introduction, I still think to myself, it's not as long as my last name.
That's right.
So thank you for having me on your show. I look forward to sharing with your listeners and giving them some great usable nuggets that they're going to be able to use in their life. So we're going to over deliver on the podcast today, my friends.
That's
awesome.
Great.
I love it. And I know that a lot of what you talk about is kind of the difference between a giver and a taker. So let's talk about that for just a second. What is the difference? In your definition or your eyes, what's the difference between a giver and a taker?
Great. Thank you for asking me that. First of all, I want to mention emphatically to all of your listeners, we love everybody. I'll even say it again a totally different way. We love everybody. Wait, that was the same way. Anyway, so in case you're wondering, we love everybody. But the main thing is that and here's what we do. We teach people at Givers University to discern and separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. Mm-hmm. So there's where the discernment comes in. So when we use the term giver, we're not labeling a person, we're labeling their deeds, because we don't label people, but we do label their deeds. And the same with the taker. When we say taker, when we use that term, we're not labeling the person, we're labeling the deeds of that person. So and I can share with you a very interesting question that I like to share with audiences. If you were to think about right now, the fires that you stomp out every day in your life, if you were to think about when your stress level goes straight through the roof, when you were to think about the conversation you just had with someone and you don't even remember what the conversation was, other than the fact you have no more energy left because they just drained it all from you, all of those three scenarios have one thing in common. There's a name attached to them. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting today is that, everything's self-improvement. And hey, guys, I'm for that. I'm a self-improvement geek. I know, Jason, you are. I know, Shane, you are. We're there, right? We're doing self-improvement.
Yeah.
But here's what's not being taught. And it's the one thing we're teaching at Givers University that's not being taught anywhere else. How about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What should I do about that? Because we're all looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, I should be doing this right. And that's all great. But no one's teaching us how to discern and look for the specific deeds. We don't use innocuous, broad swaths of information where someone goes, wow, that sounded really good. What do I do with it now? We get into, we've sifted it all the way down, filtered it all the way down to the actual deeds of a person. And when you see them doing these actual things, then you should begin to discern and ask yourself, should I bring this person in closer into my giver community? Or because of what I'm seeing, should I begin to respectfully distance myself? Not nasty, respectfully distancing myself, because when they come closer in my life, they're going to make me collateral damage. Mm-hmm. And so when we define the difference and the distinction, we have determined statistically about 20% of the population are givers. You put them in any situation, Jason and Shane, any situation, and they're going to figure a way to start giving to it. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. Now, by contrast, the other extreme is the 20% that are takers. You put them in any situation and they will figure out how to take from it morally, spiritually, mentally, financially, emotionally. They're takers, right? And the 60% in the middle, we call them fencers. Why? They sit on the fence. They act like givers when they're with givers, and they act like takers when they're with takers. They can be great relationships, but we have to pay attention and manage those relationships. Whereas the givers, they're going to always be right there doing the right thing. They inevitably will, because that's the way they're wired. So we teach people an actual skill set that's not being taught today, and it's how to discern. And I use the example that I became a commercial pilot in years past to fly my own planes. And one of the things my instructor said right away, he said, when we're going flying, he said, look out the window. And when you see a plane that starts out in the window this big, and then it gets this big, be concerned.
Yes, very.
Because the closure rate might be about 600 miles an hour between the two of you, and you're coming at each other quick. So what you want to do when you look in the mirrors, you want to see the plane be here, and then it gets smaller as time goes by. He said, if it's getting bigger, you don't assume they're going to change. You better change or you're going to get hit. So at Givers University, guys, we just teach people how to discern, how to look at that plane when it's way off in the distance and make sure it goes from there to there. Otherwise, they're going to bring with us so many fires that we have to stomp out every single day. And we become these unwilling participants in this collateral damage.
EA, that's awesome. I go back to your statement saying you're going to give us some little nuggets. That to me was a lot more than a little nugget. That was fantastic. So you've shared with us, how do we discern from those things that you're talking about? What are some tips that we can use to do what you're saying?
Well, it's an excellent question. And one of the things that we want to do, compliments of your podcast, is we want to literally share with your listeners free. We're going to give it to them. One of the first things, a couple of checklists. The first thing is called the 6 arrows. These are the 6 arrows that takers shoot at givers all the time. And givers don't realize, because they're good finders, why they're hurting and bleeding all the time. And they don't, and no one's taught them, this is what this arrow looks like when it's coming at you. Get out of the way. It's going to hurt, right?
Yeah.
So we teach them. First of all, we give them a checklist of the 6 arrows. One of the, I'll just share a couple with them, for your audience. One of the arrows is, be careful when you see a person switch from a fact-based, unemotional, high moral ground conversation to a low moral ground, including personal attacks. When they switch gears, and you can tell they can no longer have a conversation based on the facts, but now they've switched gears into, you don't know what you're talking about. See, that's an arrow. Because now they don't have anything to back up what they're saying, so they have to go into personal attack mode.
Yeah.
So when you see people switch gears and go into a personal attack on you, you could smile right back at them once you have the skill set, because you know they just got revealed as a taker. That's what takers do. They know they have to go into the personal attacks because they can no longer have a fact-based, high moral ground conversation. Another arrow would be when the taker attempts to transfer guilt from themselves to the giver by saying things like, you made me angry. You did it to me. You did this to me, right? And factually, when someone says you made me angry, that's also an inaccurate statement. No one else can make us angry. Only we can allow them to. Yeah. It's up to us, right? It's up to us to allow them to make us angry or not. So even the statement's not even accurate, besides the fact that they're trying to transfer the guilt, right? But when you see them try to do that and say, you made me, and those are the first words you'll hear, or this one. Oh, I love this one. It's just business. Oh man. I tell people, when I hear that, I run the other way. I say, because wait, it's not just your business. First of all, you just told me you're going to take advantage of me. You just told me that up front. So now I'm really an idiot if I don't pay attention. You just got telling me you're doing it, right? I said, and now, and by the way, guys, I've met a lot of educated idiots. People that are really, they know all this information, but aren't able to apply any of it.
Yeah.
And wisdom is knowing what to do and when to do it. Right. And I met a lot of educated idiots walking around with all this information and have no application skills whatsoever. And part of the problem today, guys, is we're moving so fast. Businesses open and closing, products being antiquated overnight. So when it's all done, what do we have left? our relationships.
Yep.
And no one's teaching us the skill set of who we should have close to us. Givers who bring the 3 W's, wisdom, wealth, and wellness, versus takers who bring with the 3 D's of defeatism, disruption, and destruction. So how do we discern this most important part remaining in our lives, which is our relationships? And no one's teaching us discern in this way. So we say givers earn 3 times more because givers discern 3 times more. Just that simple.
That's awesome. So is there a kind of a good way that if you recognize that you have a taker attacking you, with these arrows, is there a good way to kind of start to distance yourself from that person, again, respectfully, without being rude? But is there some ways we could do that to move ourselves into a more positive situation?
The answer is absolutely yes. And the first step is learning the skill set of discernment, which is not being taught anywhere today. That's number one. Learn to discern. It's so important. And I'm always amazed by the number of people saying, yeah, I put out fires all day long, yet they're doing nothing to change it. And if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. Just that simple.
Yeah.
So, and they're doing nothing to change it. So first thing is learn to discern. And then when we learn to discern, we learn as a part of that skill set, the things to do and how to properly, respectfully distance ourselves. And there's many ways to do that. I can share with you right now, one of the very best ways that someone could help hopefully open up someone else's mind. It's called sharing a podcast named Sprinkled with Hope.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes. All right. So, and here's the reason why. It's real simple. Sometimes, I start out by saying we love everybody. What happens when you have someone who you really love in your life? You love them, and you can tell they're doing too much taking and not enough giving. How do you broach a subject in such a way so you don't hurt them? You don't want to hurt their feelings because you care about them, right?
Right.
One of the best things you can do is share with them third-party information. Example, your podcast. And you can simply say, you know what? I heard this great podcast and it was very thought-provoking. It really made me think about some things and I really liked it. So do me a favor, listen to it and give me your opinion. Right. And you never know, your podcast, Sprinkled with Hope, could help open up their mind a little bit, because many of the things we teach, in fact, all of them, can also be used for self-assessment. So when they look at it, they say, you know what? I really am doing this. I need to make a change there. Now what happens? The person that shared your podcast with them becomes the beneficiary, because now they have maybe one less fire they're stomping out.
I love it.
Yeah,
so that's a great way to be able to share with them. So I encourage your listeners, share this interview, share this podcast with other people and help them. I mean, that's a great way to be a giver. Give them this podcast and say, I love it. You need to listen to this. One of the other things we're going to give your listeners absolutely free, because we're givers. We have to walk our talk. As we like to say with Givers University, our talk talks and our walk talks, but our walk talks louder than our talk talks. And
I love it.
So, and by the way, I had to practice that. I really did.
Yeah.
So
I believe you.
I would have too.
Yeah, that didn't just happen right then. So. but it's true that our walk, our deeds, right, are the things that talk louder. And we want to give also your listeners a checklist. And that is, this checklist is 2 pages and it's called the 25 do's. These are the 25 do's, the things, the deeds when you see someone doing this. The checklist comes from this following kind of scenario. If right now, Jason, you had maybe itchy eyes and Shane maybe had a runny nose, I could probably guess the 2 of you maybe have a cold, right? I could probably, and the reason why is I'm not able to see the cold, but I can see the symptoms, and that helps me make a decision. So we teach people, look for these symptoms of the way the person is, which our instance is their deeds. Look at the deeds and then you know the cause, right? So in our instance, we're actually gonna give them a checklist. It's 2 pages of the 25 do's. And guys, when people see this, they inevitably go, oh, this is great. This needs to be taught, because there's no checklist anywhere to say, here's something you can follow to decide who you should have in your life, or who is doing damage every day to you, causing your productivity to plummet, your stress level to go up, or they're an energy drainer. Every time you talk with them, they just sucked all the energy out of you and there's nothing left, right?
Yeah.
So we teach them this skill set. A couple of the 25 do's, I'll share those that they're going to get in their checklist. Number one, givers are willing to do the thing to get the thing. Simply said. Takers are not willing to do the thing to get the thing, but will do something else and end up with something else. So we teach people as a part of the skill set, look for the giver who is always going to be there, willing to do what's necessary and what's required to accomplish any task at hand. The taker will not. They're going to shortcut. They're going to glom onto someone else's results or work. They're going to always be looking for the shortcut way to do it, and they're not really willing to do the price that's necessary for any and all tasks, no matter what it is. See, people don't realize there's a price on everything, and we can enjoy the price once we get our head around it. You know, there's a price on every thought we think. There's a price on every deed we do. Every emotion we have, there's a price related to those. There's something that will happen as a result of that, right? And we teach people, begin to discern those things. Another thing takers are not willing to do, part of the 25 do's, they are not willing to delay gratification to increase their turns. Everything's now. Now. Pay me now, then we talk. Pay me first. Gimme. They're very me-oriented, self-oriented, first-oriented, and they don't realize the big payoffs in life happen as a result of the accumulation of what we have accomplished and done in our lifetime. So we're going to actually we're going to give these checklists to them. Just give it to them because we want them to have it, because they're going to notice a huge difference in their life as a direct result of usable things, not innocuous, unusable information that just sounds good.
This has been fascinating. So I'm curious why you've started Givers University, and if you have found that people can transition from a taker to a giver.
Right, two great questions. I'll, if you don't mind, I'll answer the second first.
Please.
The answer is yes, for sure, because they can transition, because being a giver or taker or being in those modes are not eternal. Givers University is based on a course, a series of 3 books, and these courses, they're audio courses as well that we make available, is called Give to Be Great. That's the name of the whole series. The first book and course is called The Giver's Mindset. Second is The Giver's Lifestyle, the way givers live, their habits, and the takers of habits. The third is Giver's Lifelong Learning. In the third course, we teach people how to do what's called a data reset. It's an acronym, DATA, data reset, declare and turn around. Data reset. So we teach people how to. I've been in temporary taker mode. I know what it's like to be there, and you get pulled in and you're already there before you even realize it, right? Because I wasn't discerning up front. And so, but you can do, and takers can do a data reset and get back into giver mode or go into giver mode by first declaring and then turning around. And not just the words. See, the words are cheap. Remember I said, our walk talks louder than our talk. So they have to follow it up with their deeds, declare and turn around. In other words, do the opposite thing to show that that's exactly what you really are intending to do. The second is really how, Givers University came about. And I can share with you we're clearly, we've hit a chord. People I would share this with, and I share this with usually, at least a podcast a day, sometimes 2 or 3 every single day. And the response is the same across the board. People go, wow, this is really great stuff. And I can share with you how it came about. And it came about because of a vow and a commitment I made when I was the ripe old age of 19 years old. And it had to do with my business mentor. And then I'll digress even more after the quick snippet, but and how I met him. But I can share with you that when I did meet him, I could tell he was very successful and very happy. Now, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be rich and happy, not realizing even at that point I had it backwards. First, we're supposed to be happy, then we're supposed to be rich, right?
Yeah.
And, even when people say in a clichéic way, they say, you're supposed to grow up and you go to college and you get married and you live happily ever after. Happily ever after should be the first thing we do.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's always thrown at the end like this, sort of an add-on kind of thing, right? So I could tell he had these things, and I wanted to learn. I was thirsty. I just wanted to learn. And I knew he knew, and I didn't. I was the son of a milkman, right? And so because of that, I asked him, I said, can you teach me? Can you teach me the things I need to know? And he said, yes, I can, but I need something from you. And it didn't even matter what he was going to say next. I was going to say yes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and he said, when the time is right, and you will know when that time is, you have to teach it to everybody else.
Mm.
And I made that oath. I made that vow at 19 years old. And at 65 years old today, I am full force on fulfilling that oath. So it's a great blessing that I'm able to do that. And I can tell the time is right because of the chord it's hitting with people. And they're going, man, this needs to be taught. This is a skill set people aren't learning today.
Mm-hmm.
So as a son of a milkman, the final digression here, as a son of a milkman, back when I was a kid, they actually had boxes outside the house that the milk went in, and milk came in glass jugs, glass gallons, right? And there was money in the box, and everyone knew it, and no one touched the money. Everyone knew that was milkman's money, right? They all knew. So that my father had a distributorship for Twin Oaks. I lived in Chicago for the first 30 years of my life. So I, my whole mentality was, one man operation, delivering milk, and at 5 years old, I did it a lot of times with my father. And then I made my first big step up into success, and I became a janitor. Now I have to say, I didn't mind that because business was picking up. What? Anyway, so here I am at 16 years old, a janitor. My fun time in life is getting free music on the jukebox while cleaning a bowling alley at 2 a.m. That's the big, it's the big blast for the day. Yeah. But at 16, I was able to be bonded. So I was able to be insured to be in expensive places. And one of those was a home of a lady whose name was June Martino, who I cleaned her home every single Wednesday. Now, did either of you gentlemen see the movie with Michael Keaton about McDonald's called The Founder?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I don't think I have seen that one.
It's worthwhile. And it's about the McDonald's history, and really they're focusing on Ray Kroc. And it certainly is very Hollywoodized,
Sure.
based on certain events, but, it's very dramatized, and Ray really wasn't that way. I lived there. I lived in the area. I lived in Oak Brook, Illinois, a suburb right there, right next to it. So the whole McDonald's phenomenon I witnessed in my life. And in the movie, if you see the movie, it's called The Founder. All right. When you see the movie, you'll see Ray constantly talks to this lady outside his office who is his secretary. And he says, June. He always says, June. That's June Martino.
Oh, okay.
That's the lady whose house I cleaned. Right. That same lady who became, she had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's.
Wow.
So, and she was very nice, very, very approachable. Here I am, cleaning this $1 million home. She's got maids and butlers full time there. And, there I am buffing floors and, with special pads and cleaning the swimming pool and pulling the Rolls Royce out of the garage 5 times just so I could sit in a car that was worth more than my income for 5-year lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my fun. But I'm thinking, someone really lives like this, and she seems nice. She's not like an alien or a superhero or something. She's a regular person. How come her and not me? What's the deal here? So there was a day and she was always really nice, very approachable, never condescending to help, just the opposite, as a matter of fact. And so I could tell one day she was in an extra good mood. So here I am, snot-nosed 16-year-old, mustering up all my courage. I go up to her and I said, June, can I ask you a question? She goes, well, sure. And I said, could you tell me about it? And she said, well, what? And I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. I'm not kidding you. She put her arm around me and took me in the kitchen, and the entire day told me an entire story from the beginning all the way to the moment we were sitting in the kitchen. She even had the maid and butlers bringing us food so she could keep telling me the story in the kitchen. It was incredible. And she's telling me, and I'm thinking, my God, this is June Martino. She's like an icon. Everyone knows, certainly in the Chicago area, they all knew who she was. She was, who she was. And she got to this one point, and they actually portrayed it in the movie. They do reference this in the movie where McDonald's was going underwater. They were losing money, and June goes to Ray and says, we have no money and we're losing money every day. There's nothing left. She said that was accurate. That, the movie hadn't come out yet, but she told me that part of the story. And she said Ray couldn't pay her. So he paid her in worthless company stock. Company wasn't worth anything. It was underwater, and didn't pay her any money. and took all the phone calls from her bill collector so she didn't get hassled.
Wow.
So I looked at her and I said, June, I'm a janitor. I get paid on Friday. If I don't get my paycheck on Friday, I'm not showing Saturday. I'm not going to be there, right? I'm gone. I said, why did you do it? And Jason and Shane, I got to tell you, she like sat back on her chair and stared at me, even though I knew I had just asked her a question no one had ever asked her before. And she left. She was staring right at me, and I could tell she wasn't home anymore. And after probably 10 seconds, which seemed like an hour, because she's staring right at me, and I'm going, okay, that kind of thing, and she's like staring right at me. And then when she said her answer, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, because not only what she said, but the way she said it. When I said, June, why did you do it? She simply said, because I believed in Ray. And I thought, man, my instant thought, guys, was I got to find me a Ray Kroc. That's it. I got to find a Ray Kroc. I have to find someone who will take me under their wing, teach me what I need to know, because I'm the son of a milkman, burnt out janitor, and I don't know what to do. I just know I want to do it.
Yep.
And it wasn't 2 or 3 months later, I met Sam Robbins, my business mentor, and the gentleman who started the jewelry store. And side story on how we met, which is an interesting lesson for your listeners. I'm at the office of the janitorial service at night. We're already closed. I punched out. And he felt like punching out. I just said, they say punched out for a reason. That wasn't, that's a real legit thing. So so I punched out, and I'm sitting there talking with the boss, because he was like a friend of the family. And he gets a phone call. This guy's in from Detroit, opening a diamond store, and he needs to see some carpeting tonight because he's leaving back to Detroit on a plane tomorrow morning. And so Jerry looks at me. He says, I have to stay here. Can the boss? He said, can you go? And I said, Jerry, I don't know anything about carpeting. I said, you know that. I just clean places and stuff and give estimates. That's, cleaning. He goes, I'll tell you what, take this wheel, walk that way, and call me on the phone, and I'll do the price for you. I said, no. I said, I've already punched out. I'm done for the day. That's it. I'm tired, man. I've been cleaning all day, right? He said, I'll tell you what, if you'll go, I'll give you your pick of the Saturday off you want. Now, for a janitor, that's a big negotiation chip, because businesses are closed on Saturday and we clean every Saturday, no matter what.
Yeah.
So a Saturday off is like, whoa, you got to be kidding me. This is great. So I repeated it back because I wanted to make sure my ears weren't tricking me. So I said, Jerry, any Saturday I want off? He said, yep, any Saturday. I said, okay. So I went back, punched in, put some samples in the car and drove. So now here's the stage. Begrudgingly, emotionally, I'm dragging. Mentally, I'm dragging. Physically, I don't even want to do this. And I'm just dragging myself doing it because I'm going to get a Saturday off of my choice. That's the only reason. There's no other reason. And little do I know, I'm getting to meet the man that will change the trajectory of my life forever. So I share with your listeners, be discerning and be aware, because the most significant event in your life will happen at that moment when it seems most insignificant.
Love that.
And here I am. I'm meeting met my mentor, and then for the next 4 months, because I didn't know anything about diamonds, and he offered me a job, right? So I started working for him, and I all I know is I was just thirsty for what he knew. I wanted to know, man. He had made it, and he was happy, and he had everything I felt like I wanted, and so every Saturday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, I got in the car 4 a.m, drove all the way to Detroit, exactly 301 miles, invested 6 hours with him, asking any question I could possibly think of, and then got in the car and drove all the way home, did it in the same day, every single weekend for 4 months in a row, and never missed a weekend.
Wow.
I wanted it. I had the desire, and I knew he had it, and I knew I didn't know how. And I knew I had the desire, but that was it, and and that was all inflamed because of June Martino. And I thought, man, people really live like that. This is incredible. I mean, she's a real person. She's not like an idiot or something that's, that I don't want to become that kind of person. She wasn't that way at all, so that's how I met my business mentor. And from there, I have to tell you, I was very, very blessed. And he became the father I never had, even though I had a father. And I became the son he never had, even though he had a son. And what an amazing experience. And he was the one that made me do the vow and I gave the commitment. Little did I know how impactful that was going to be at that point. Because like I said, I was going to say yes, no matter what he asked, I was,
Yeah.
give me, I want to know. And now I can see the impact that it's having on people, because they're learning about a skill set that's so severely lacking today and is bringing so much suffering to people at work, and they don't know what to do. All they know is they go to work and they can't wait to leave. They hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And should we be doing that for like 8 hours a day, being in an environment we hate that much? That's craziness. And yet people do it because they haven't been taught how to discern. How do you see that airplane way out there when it's still small, and then you navigate and make the change right then, so you don't get hit, so you don't become the collateral damage. And I love teaching this stuff. It is genuinely fun.
Man, this has been so awesome. EA, this has really been super insightful for me. Just dropping really awesome nuggets here and there. So kind of at the end of our podcast, Shane and I, we asked 2 questions we call the double down dose. And so I'm going to ask the first question, then Shane will ask the second question, then we can wrap up with anything else you have left. But the first question is what is your definition of love, or how would you define love?
Love is put in your heart, but not to stay. Love is not love until you give it away.
Yes. That was great. Very good. Yeah. So we've also come up with an acronym like you with your data. Ours is around hope, because we love to talk about hope. So heart, overcome, passion, and enough. And how would you define overcome, or how would you explain that to somebody, to overcome?
Well, the first thing that has to be in place to be an overcomer is to have priorities in place. And the priorities are, simply put, intelligent design, family, country, business, self. That's the only order. And after 65 years and meeting thousands of people and interviewing 3 millionaires an hour for 5 days a week for 2 years solid on my talk show, I'm telling you, those 5 priorities in that order is the only way it works. Intelligent design, family, country, business, self. Notice self is 5th, not 1st. When those 5 things and those priorities are in order, things almost work like magic, because our life is in priority and happy. And I always share with myself what I think I'd like to share with your listeners as something that because we have thousands of conversations with ourselves every day. And one of the things we teach is how to relabel these things, how to relabel. Don't use the word failure, use temporary defeat, because failure is too eternal, right? Temporary defeat is just that, it's temporary defeat, right? So as a part of the free labeling, I would recommend that your listeners say 3 things to themselves. I will never give up. I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah, this has seriously been one of my favorite discussions with a guest. You have given some fantastic insight on how we can see the difference between a giver and a taker, and what simple things we can do to overcome those things. So EA, thank you so much for joining us today, and really look forward to seeing some more good things out of you.
Can I share something with your listeners
Yes,
on how they
please.
can reach us? We actually have a free quiz. We'd like to have all your listeners do. And it's the title of the quiz is, what is your givers and takers awareness IQ? What is your givers and takers awareness IQ? It's 7 questions. Literally, the whole thing is 5 minutes or less. And what'll happen is they'll get an assessment. We have different assessments based on what their answers are on how are they, what is their awareness IQ as it relates to observing other people's deeds, right? And first of all, the assessment's great. It's absolutely free. We want them to get it so they can see where they're at, right? And then within minutes afterwards, we're going to give them the 6 arrows I talked about. Get that and download it. It should be a checklist. They should walk around with them and start observing and discerning. And a couple of days later, we're going to give them the 25 do's. It's a 2-page checklist of these are the 25 things that givers do and takers do. And when you see them doing 13 of them, you may want to start thinking they're on one side or the other, right?
Yeah.
And So an actual checklist to live by, we sifted it down to that point. And they simply go to a URL. It's giversuniversity.info, givers plural, giversuniversity.info. When they go there, they're actually on the first question. They're on that page is the first question of the quiz. When I say 5 minutes or less, probably closer to 4 minutes to do the whole thing, 3, multiple choice questions, and then you get an assessment on that. And then subsequently, they're going to get these great checklists that are usable, practical, skill set raising checklists that are going to help them have a better life. Because then we know, as Givers University, we have done our job as we help arm people with a skill set and an awareness level that's not being taught today.
Thank you so much for offering that to our listeners. I know that if they take advantage of it, that it will help them. And so I hope that they go ahead and do that. And just, in closing, obviously, thank you for your time, EA. We really appreciate your words of wisdom today. And you started out with that we love everybody. And so that's what I wanted to close with, is just all of you listeners out there, know that the three of us love you with every fiber of our being. And we are so grateful for you today. Keep having hope, find hope, know your worth. You all have worth, and we are so, so grateful for you.